Recorded live from the secret underground lair of Crimson Cowl Comics and Collectibles, this is the Crimson Cowl Comic Club Podcast.
The following issues may contain spoilers. Once upon a time, at the end of the world. I'm Anthony.
I'm Kirby.
I'm Katie.
I'm Jim.
I'm Kevin.
Welcome to issue number 304 of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club podcast. Every time we record, we talk about comic books. On this week's show, we're going to have a club discussion for the final issue of our journey through the end of the world with Once Upon a Time at the End of the World, number 15. And then as a reminder for upcoming club discussions, we'll have Deadpool Wolverine World War III number 2, Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Dime. Both of those issues are out at this moment. And the What If Donald Duck Became Wolverine. So we have those in future club discussion episodes. But on this week's show, after the club discussion, we will dive into the weekly reviews. That's where we go back and forth and we talk about the books that we've been reading. They could be new, they could be old, but we're going to talk about them there. And that is the setup for the show. And as you heard in the intro, whether you're listening through iTunes or you are watching the YouTube video, we are welcoming back Kevin Wolf from Happy Wolf Art. So welcome back, Kevin.
Thank you. Awesome to be here.
And just to do a little plug here, we've had it on the previous episodes, not only interviewing Kevin Wolf, having him on Cartoonist by Night as well, but in the last episode, myself and Kirby talked about his latest book, Vamp and Muffin, which, if you're watching the video, this is why you subscribe to Crimson Cowl Comic Club over on YouTube. He showed a little teaser for the colorized version. So follow Happy Wolf Art over on Instagram and find out what he has to offer. Okay, so we're going to dive into the show proper by going into the club discussion. Okay, we're going to start talking about the final issue of Once Upon a Time at the End of the World with issue number 15. This will be a general recap of the entire series as we dive into this final issue discussion. Love in the Wasteland spans a lifetime as the dark mysteries of a ruined world and their own stark differences tear at the threads holding Mezzi and Maceo together. As they endure the horrors of plastic tornadoes and frozen sludge, Maceo proves to be more than just a burden, and they make an unlikely connection. But to their peril, they might not be as alone as they thought. A suburban community is the last thing Maceo and Mezzi expected to find. As more people come to reside in the settlement called Golganuza, it flourishes and becomes a home for Mezzi and Maceo. However, the cracks in Maceo and Mezzi's oasis turn to chasms as they and the community face their first disasters. The chasm between there's a word there that was auto changed, so I don't know what that is. Literally, as Golganuza's foundation crumbles and bubbles with a strange poison gas. Braving the wasteland apart feels the unthinkable, yet here Maceo and Mezzi are isolated on a world breathing its last breaths. Join each of their separate journeys through the darkest apocalyptic pits of depression, two wayward sides of a coin. Old age at the end of the world is as stark as brutal as it sounds for Mezzi and Maceo, as two people that were once so important to each other are chasms apart. They like to use chasms in these descriptions. But when a group of Ravengers steal technology from one of Maceo's partners with the intent to hasten the end of the Earth itself, two former lovers will find themselves stitched together by fate. If they make it out alive, if everyone makes it out alive, will Mezzi and Maceo find love again? Perhaps peace lies elsewhere. This series was done by Jason Aaron, Nick Tragotta, Rico Renzi, Alexandre Tefenki, Lee Loridge, Leila Del Duca, Tamara Bonvillain, and Ann World Design. There we go. That is kind of an overall recap of what this 15-issue series has dealt with. We've been talking about this month to month and following it through the trilogy of books, the chapters that they've been given us in comic book form here. We've had some ups and downs with the stories, not only with the characters, but as well as the readership here. Very strong first arc, and then there were some elements in the middle arc that kind of had a lot of us question it, and then kind of bringing it into the future, kind of getting a glimpse of those future scenes in that third arc, and knowing that we were gearing for a finale, a series that I think added a couple issues onto its initial run, and but now we know this is the final issue, at least as far as this specific story goes. So that is all the setup we need to do. What we're going to do is dive into this discussion. I was going to make that 2 words 1 word, and let's jump over to Jim first. Jim, what are your thoughts on Once Upon a Time at the End of the World number 15?
Well, once again, they've done this on almost every issue. They have just a killer cover. Awesome cover art. And then that cover art really carried pretty well into the title page as well, where they're holding hands as young kids. So that was good. And I'm going to say this is one of the few times I've actually gone and reviewed a book on Amazon. And my title for my review was Sad But Satisfying. I am happy with the way this book ended, this series ended. Like I said, sad. It's quite a sad ending, but it does satisfy what this arc has been. They survive. We get to see them survive, but through the turmoil that they've had and everything, they are apart and yet still together, watching each other, even though the potential is there, but they do not connect again, which is what their life has been throughout the wasteland. Like I said, happy. I also did kind of make some comments on my Amazon review about being longer than it needed to be by 2 or 3 issues. They could have shortened it down. While I personally was not offended by any of the violence or sex or nudity that was ever portrayed, I can see that some of it was just not needed to make the story work. It was extra. But again, this story, this ending, I mean, this chapter, awesome. I think some of the technology, the way that they have Mace working on these little gadgets, and it was just brought some humor into this, issue that was just, like you almost sense everything going, next level gonna, okay, it's gonna hurt, and then there's a little joke with one of his little gizmos that he's putting out there, even though they just look ridiculous, but so it makes you laugh just seeing these little things he builds. There you go. Anthony has some pictures on the screen. Yeah, so I am very satisfied with the ending to this book, the series. I did read this whole thing on digital. I think I am going to watch for when this comes out as a collection. Probably not individual trades, but maybe like a complete issue, everything all in one.
For sure.
Get a hard copy of that. Because I think I would enjoy reading it again that way, all in one sitting.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely high praise with owning it digitally and then going through being like, oh, I got to get a physical copy of this.
There's only a couple of things I've done that with, so.
Very cool. Let's jump over to Katie. Thoughts on this issue and the series as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is probably my favorite issue of the series. It did pretty much everything right, and I was pretty critical of volume 2 of the series. I really like this. It answered a lot of questions we had during the series, and it was, Jim's totally right. It's very satisfying that after they fall apart, that the final issue then mirrors that, where they do come together and saving the world. And they might not have had any human children, but they did in fact create things and contribute to this new world coming together. And I think it's an interesting commentary on having to experience something difficult and in ways fall apart and change and be renewed to grow as a person. Um, I really enjoyed this. It was bittersweet, but it does have enough like positive notes that I really thought it did what it should. This was never going to be a series that ends on a happy ending, and I actually think they got a better ending than I was anticipating. I was sort of figuring, well, they both die in the end, but they, as they grow old, they get to enjoy a new world that they helped create. And I thought the ending really mirrored the beginning, where Mace is, once again watching the world from his home through his telescope, and this time he gets to see Mezzy again. I really liked it. I'm glad that they were able to fix the engine and have that produce something green and healthy and good and fix the wasteland. I really enjoyed it. Like, this was an up and down series for me, but this last issue was so good. I would be willing to maybe check it out again in trades, but well done. Great ending issue. One of the best I've seen in a while.
Very cool. Yeah, I would say I'd agree about, sticking the landing, this being a very strong end to the series. I just love the whole series. We've seen the glimpses of their past, their present, and their future, and I like that that was still all represented in this one here, and just kind of seeing the correlation, the relationship, and just seeing the good and the bad, and I just like jumping around to all that stuff, and I
Yeah.
think they did a real good job of it's very the art styles and having different artists contribute to this book. It does a good job of knowing what kind of time period you're in. When you get into the
Yeah.
the harshness and the battle and the gruesome and the bloody and stuff, and I think it does a good job of separating that and balancing it out at the same time. Yeah, I really enjoy the ending and seeing the hope. I like an ending that
Yeah.
it's not one of those that it says the end period. It doesn't have a question mark, but I like it where it kind of really look what Katie said, where it was way better than I thought it was going to be as far as their personal endings, and for them to get to kind of live these lives, and while they didn't, uh, get together in the very end or anything like that, but there's still that hope for, it kind of leaves it up to the imagination of the reader. We see them, because they even make the comment, about going over there, and then they're like, what, tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow for sure. And so I just like that, even though we're not getting a tomorrow in another issue. I don't know if this is something that they would, plan to do another volume years down the road and explore that. But I think as the story exists right now, I think it was very satisfying as from what we have at the moment. So yeah, I really enjoyed that ending. Um, let's jump over to Kirby now. There was a certain point, I forget what issue you had jumped off of it, but you're gonna, you still joined the club. You're listening to our reviews, and so what are your thoughts on your journey with this book?
It sounds like it had a good ending and finished itself decent enough. It's like I really wished I could have got the copy today, so I could have checked it out. But yeah, I jumped off at just into the volume 2 section, and I don't feel like I missed much until this final issue. Seems like the last few that I missed out on, it you guys weren't overly impressed with, so there wasn't too much story that I didn't expect to hear about. But yeah, I was kind of expecting them to at least go deeper on did they do anything more with the mist monster or anything like that? They just leave it where it was.
They kind of determined that the mist monster was like their own minds reacting to the way Gorgonzola, whatever, was created. So there was something beyond that that affected their own minds, and kind of that way, and let them destroy themselves. And for some reason, yeah.
And there was no re-representation of the scouts at all. Okay. And they never reformed or came back at them or anything like that.
That was Mezzy went off on her own, and created this weird version of them, and they were called Ravagers. And those were the creatures that they have been fighting in the last few issues as they went to save the world and fix the engine.
But yeah, it sounded like it ended decent enough. So
I
I
wanted
don't know
to
if they're planning a second round with it or not.
I was going to say that they kind of leave a little bit of a door open in their title page where they say Chapter 5, as yet untitled.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
So they don't say the end or the final or whatever. They say as yet untitled. So it's leaving a little bit of a door open. But I think the story is ended. These characters are old and at the ending of their life. There's not much more for them to do anymore. So I don't see why they could do like a flashback series or something. I don't see that going forward.
Yeah,
I want to
that's
throw
what I thought. They looked like they were getting pretty old in the last issue. So
I want to throw it over to Kevin Wolf. Now, you haven't read any of the issues from the series. You did a little research for yourself in preparation for this. Based on what we've talked about in the synopsis and reactions and everything, do you have any kind of thoughts or questions, comments on the series at all?
Yeah, Katie's review of it, I think it was maybe 2 episodes ago. She talked about a reverse Garden of Eden type of,
Oh, sure.
possibly.
Yeah.
That got me really interested. Just those big ideas I thought were really neat. The reviews I did see online, the art looked incredible, and I'm wondering if they're going to come out with maybe like an artist or a black and white edition to it. And then I did hear about some polyamorous, I forget what polyamorous, maybe that's the Garden of Eden type of thing. And I didn't delve into that, but I was curious what I pictured it sort of like a hippie commune type of thing. But yeah, it looks like a fun adventure with some big ideas and sort of philosophical ideas. So I'll look forward to coming across it in the future and maybe checking it out in trade, like what Jim said. So.
Yeah, and going into this series, I was most excited when I saw Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron being the name, what drew my attention to it. I like the title and all that kind of stuff, but how many of these apocalyptic, end of the world type things, there's a lot of them out there. But having Jason Aaron at the helm, and obviously the awesome art team that we had mentioned, but Jason always has a good long game. I always refer to his run on Thor, including both Odin's son and Jane Foster Thor, and just God Thors and the future, Thor's granddaughters, like all that stuff. Like he has such a good eye for having a beginning, a middle, and an end. And he's given a lot of. I think he has a lot of credit for being given that permission to see his full ideas out. Somebody like a Tom King does a similar thing when it's just like, okay, I'm starting issue 1. Yeah, I already know how issue 125 is going to end, but we have to get there first. Like, so kind of knowing that, even though we're dealing with 15 issues here, there are times that I could see this being like a Walking Dead sized epic as far as just continuing to live in this world and this with these characters and meeting new people. Like the kind of world building, I think Jason Aaron, kind of really explored what he needed to, but almost like what Jim said too, with kind of being open for more, whether it's in the past or whatever. But Jason Aaron was the big draw here, so I wasn't just disappointed at all with that outcome. So.
I did have a question based on that cover image because I don't know the characters very well, but it looks like the male hand and then the couple, right? I'm thinking the couple, is she a robot? Or is that some other relationship going on the cover?
It's the other way around. Maseo is the guy who lost his hands and made mechanical arms for himself. And Nezzy turned out to be a big hulking woman in her old age.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, And thankfully, I was able to show this panel. There's been previous issues of him in this state that I wouldn't be able to show it at the moment, but we can look at this one just based on him wearing a little more clothing. But yeah, this is a little look at his transformation throughout the series and his gadgets and such. And but yeah, and then it sort of has you know, has a little heart formation going on there with the chains in the middle of the hands and their fingers there. So yeah, beautiful cover.
Yeah, I read that they weren't initially like an expected couple, like they didn't like each other and then they grew together over time, which is always there has to be a good story for people to grow together, and then there's the distance.
Yeah, I think that first arc really did. We were all like fully on board. Really loved those issues, and seeing her coming up with these, the scout traits and the training and everything. And he is a quote unquote nerd who's tinkering and gadgets and kind of created his own little paradise inside his tower that nobody else lived in and everything. And but him getting excited to get out in the world and go on adventures and basically just kind of dragged behind her because she's kind of rough and toughing it out there and everything. And so there's a lot of good stuff in that first arc, and then a second arc dealing with their love. In some ways very detailed, dealing with that stuff. But yeah, it's been quite a journey. Any other thoughts that anybody wanted to throw out there before we close the book, Jim?
I wanted to make a comment on something Katie said about the raising children. They didn't raise children, and then they even mentioned that in the book someplace, like they never had kids. Nobody at their colony ever had kids.
Yeah, I caught that.
Except like when together they built all this. They built that colony. They fixed the world and everything together. But when they separately tried to do things, like he went out and he kind of had this other family that just wasn't able to do anything on its own. And she went out and she built this other troop that ended up being these psychotic, cannibalistic, ragers,
Yeah.
So they're when they tried to do this family and children thing on their own, they failed, but together they were able to fix the world and save it, even though they didn't end up together.
No, great point. Yeah. Wow.
All right.
It really was a fairy tale after all.
So I think that will do it then. We'll close the book on that club discussion. We've been doing that for 15 issues throughout this series here. That was from Boom Studios. I was about to say Image Comics, but it was from Boom Studios. So yeah, thank you to everybody involved in this book, giving us a grand topic to discuss on this club discussion. Future club discussion episodes, though, as a reminder, Deadpool versus Wolverine World War III. I believe that is a 3-issue limited series. We have issue 2 that's out at the moment, and then we have some one-shots celebrating some Disney crossover stuff. Uncle Scrooge and the Infinity Coin, which is available now. That'll be on a future episode as well. And then we are anticipating What If Donald Duck Became Wolverine? So those are some upcoming club discussions. We decide our club discussions through the previews catalogs. So when we dive in, I actually just got the new previews for the July for September book. So on our next episode, we're going to start diving into Marvel and DC. But when we start to find out that we have a couple people that are interested in the same book, then we kind of nominate it for a club discussion. So stay tuned for more. But in order to do all those, we have to go to our next segment, which is the weekly reviews. Welcome to the weekly reviews. I'm going to kick it off with a purchase that I made through a recommendation from Brenna Thumler. Brenna Thumler, who we talk about quite often on this very podcast, and hopefully be reaching out to her when she's available for some new releases for the Crimson Cowl Comic Club discussion. But she advertised this book from a friend of hers that she had an art contribution to as far as a fan art thing. I am talking about Scumburbia mega-sized mall issue. And when you look at this, that's why you watch the video, it is a mega-sized issue because it is bigger than your standard comic book. This is magazine format size here. Two semi-interconnected stories that set in high school, and you guessed it, the mall, the local watering hole, and central hothouse for the kids in this fictional suburban town. This story is funny, sad, and weird. It's about what friendship means at the vulnerable time in one's life. It's about adolescent perseverance or for something that feels like it's the most important thing in the world. It's about a time when rumors and suburban legends permeate every facet of high school life and how difficult it can be to navigate between friends and foes. It's goofy, it's funny, and it's personal. It's about you and the kids you remember going to high school with. This comic is done, I believe, entirely by Sam Grinberg. So I wasn't too familiar with Sam Grinberg, and then I did a quick little search, and I see a bunch of the people that I follow who also follow him, and he's got a bunch of awesome credits, and apparently he works with The Simpsons. Um, there was a couple elements in this book that I was just being like, oh, that's kind of like a Barton Lisa, style haircut here with this little boy has a Lisa style haircut. And I remember thinking of that when I was reading this and just being like, oh, that's kind of like a Simpsons kind of vibe or whatever. And then I would research him after the fact, being like, oh, okay, he works on The Simpsons. But anyways, this is his own creation. Um, by his own admission, this may be issue 3, but issue 1 he's considering no longer canon. So technically, this third issue is now issue 2, and you can read them in any order you want. So there's a whole introduction in this, and with me not knowing anything about this, oh, I forgot there was a little kind of print included there. Fell out of the book. So he has a whole introduction into this book, and he talks about how he's never really addressed the audience before, and he always kind of forgets it, and then he remembered to do it this time, and he kind of welcomes people to this universe, kind of talking about how this book has really expanded throughout the years, and him doing these issues, and this is the biggest one that he's tackled yet, 80 plus pages, I believe, and then just mentioning too, it's very self-contained, and for new readers, it's very new reader friendly, which is I can agree on. I didn't know anything about these characters or this creator before diving in. I only went in because Brenna Thumler had mentioned it, and there was she had done some fan art of some of the characters. So there's Brenna Thumler's art style. You'll know her from her works on the Sheets trilogy and Anne of Green Gables graphic novel adaptation. And this was an excellent book. This is completely in black and white. You meet a bunch of different kids. You get an introduction on the cover here. You have Sheena, John, Spike. There's a bunch of other characters as well as we basically go through this mall. We have many different characters. This is separated by I think two different stories that are in here where we kind of see how these characters kind of interconnect. But both of these stories are kind of rooted in the fascination and the want of getting concert tickets for this band. I forget what band. I think it's all fictional created stuff for the sake of this universe. But you see how these kids being like kind of putting in a time period where the mall is still a popular thing. I kind of get a vibe that it's kind of like a late 90s, early 2000s time period. I could be wrong on that, but just based on the some of the references, I guess it is at a period where I guess they are shocked that CD stores still exist, so it might be on the towards the downfall of buying physical media when it comes to music and such. They make a reference of that of how they want to buy these concert tickets, and they're like, well, we can just buy them online. Be like, oh no, we still want to collect the physical ticket, so we're going to go buy them at this store that's in the mall. And there's a whole journey about these kids trying to hitch a ride with siblings, friends, and such, and trying to get them to get to the mall. What I really love about the artwork is that there's so much to look at. Not only we talked about it with Kevin Wolf's work, where me and Kirby looking at the background and seeing all the little details and little things that just it just makes you want to pour over the art. And I found that with this style here because there's whether it's like a little like graffiti or stickers or signs, there's jokes everywhere. I will mention that on the outside of that gas station, that convenience store. There's like so much fun stuff that now I lost the page. I had it. There's so much fun stuff in the detail of the art to just go through and just read all the little signage. And now I somehow oh yeah, here it is. So when you look on the door here, let's see here. They're advertising the brand new pumpkin spice pregnancy test. So yeah, there's a pumpkin spice pregnancy test that's being advertised on the door of this convenience store, and it's so very tiny. I had to squint my eyes even to see it right now again. But there's just so many good jokes. It's a good flow. I love the characters. The character designs are fun. I'll show some more examples here. It is for mature readers, by the way, as far as language goes. Yeah, we're not dealing with any nudity or sex or anything like that. Here's an awesome double page splash of the mall. When they're talking about going into the mall and just talking about all the different characters and just saying, I hope the mall's not busy tonight. And you just see everything because everybody's hanging out at the mall on a Friday night. So there's just so much to pour over here. Almost like you're just looking at like a Where's Waldo or something, where it's just you have to look at every little character and what they're all doing, and just everybody has a job to do in here, and it just everyone has a personality. And this was super fun. But both of these stories, once again, they interconnect with these people ultimately wanting to get to the mall to buy these tickets. And what happens when these tickets sell out? Well, then they have to go to different means to obtain the tickets. And one example I want to show is that there are two creepy people here. They're called the Torrance twins. Now, if I'm not mistaken, isn't that with The Shining? Isn't Torrance? Is that like a name that's in some Stephen King novels? Something like Torrance, or is that the Torrance Hotel or something like that? I think Torrance has something to do with that, but they very much have that idea of those twins from The Shining, and they're in here. And what's funny is that they've acquired these tickets, and they want to charge triple for the price. And there's just a funny little moment in this book that just kind of describe the kind of humor in here. Is that I just gotta, oh yeah, here we go. So they said, oh yeah, if you want these, you have to pay us triple, and you have to do it by tonight. And the time is ticking, so you better hurry up before we sell it to the next person. And then there's just a moment where they're just saying, uh, tick tock. They're saying tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, and they just keep walking backwards, and they just keep going into the background, just saying tick tock, and they're so creepy, and they're both just walking backwards, and that's their exit out of the panel. And I wanted to call them out specifically because that is who we see with Brenna Thumler's fan art that is included, is these Torrance twins, TikTok and whatever. But there's just a lot of great humor in here, and I was in for it. The other two issues seem to be sold out. They seem to be kind of a smaller production level, but I'm excited to follow this creator and see what else is out there for me. So that is Scumburbia, the mega-sized mall issue. If you follow Sam Grinberg, you can find his shop, and copies are available at the time of this recording. All right.
I saw a possible play on words in there on that mall splash page.
Okay.
If I can point it out. I'm not sure if he's doing this, but there's a no loitering sign on the right side, and obviously there's tons of people.
Oh, sure.
L-O-I-T, but Leut in German means people, and it's not spelled that way. So it has this double meaning of no people, and it's obviously full of people. But no loitering. Keine Leute, or no people. So I don't know if he has a German language background, or if he's just playing on words, or he just cut it off randomly right there. But
well, what an episode to bring this to the table when we had Kevin Wolf on to point out a detailed translation like that. So
yeah,
cool. Okay.
Torrance is the little boy from The Shining.
Okay.
So when they're talking about the Torrance twins, it's usually the actors who played him and the little girls who ride the trikes around.
Sure.
Those same kids played both roles, I believe.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I knew Torrance sounded familiar, and they obviously have that presence of just being creepy twins. So, all right, let's jump over to Kirby. What you got for us?
All right, I got Godzilla 70th anniversary one shot. This is awesome. I'm really glad I picked it up. Lots of great artwork and stories in here. You get quite a few stories actually. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 stories in here. Starting out with the half-century boar, written, drawn, and lettered by James Stocco. It starts out with the battle between Godzilla and this big kind of like oil sludge monster. And there's a couple characters that are starting a new job, and they're just like no real idea of what their job is, but they're like, we're going to be working around. We'll be able to see the kaijus while they're battling and stuff with their job, thinking that they're going to have some easy, fun job and just be able to watch the battles. Well, they end up being put on the mission to take care of the sludge monster. So anytime the sludge monster appears, they get to deal with it. And if you're dealing with these kaijus, you're also dealing with lots of radiation and stuff like that. And they're all excited because Godzilla blows the monster up with a blast of his cold frost from him, or his electric frost. And they just find out that, well, get to it. You get to clean it up now. So yeah, kaiju sludge everywhere they gotta deal with. But yeah, it's really fun how that story turns out. They threw some nice little twist with everything. All these stories were great. Second story was Contagion. This one was done by Dan Didio, Joel Jones, Marco Lesko, and Russ Wooten. Basically kind of got a scientist that creates a virus that could pretty much wipe everything off of the planet. And she deals with, I'm not going to go too deep on these stories, but she deals with it the way she feels she has to. And we happen to have this giant mosquito kaiju that is pretty much carrying the virus, and it attacks Godzilla and kind of gives him the virus and stuff. But you're gonna have to read the story to find out all these outcomes, because they are short stories, so it's kind of hard not to give stuff away. But then we got Of Gods and Con Artist by Danny Lohr and Sebastian Perez. And this one's basically people make a couple characters making a deal, kind of Gambino style, the mafia style thing going on, and characters trying to sell off something that's not really what he expects to sell off. And while they're making the deal, big giant tail kind of opens up their building for him a little bit, airs out the building. You can see what happens in the long run with these characters after Godzilla shows up. We got In the Shadow of a God, written and illustrated by Matt Frank, and poetry by, I'm missing out on this, but I'm going to have to look at that. Poetry by Donnie Winter. I've never seen that written before. Japanese calligraphy by Makai Takarada, and lettering by Ross Wooten. It's so hard not to say Boss Wooten, the MMA fighter. But it's just beautiful artwork of Godzilla. I just love that Japanese form. It's just awesome. And then basically goes into a story about a girl that finds her own little dinosaur character, puts him in a water bucket, tries to get him somewhere safe. And the whole time that's happening, there's tanks coming in to battle Godzilla. She's trying to get around it without getting hurt herself. And that's just very enjoyable. You got Godzilla in the Darkness by E.G. Sue. Whereas we got a kid that's basically sent home alone. He's afraid of the dark, and he's got to deal with everything in his environment. And he just happens to go into the darkness, and he sees Godzilla, and he's worried about Godzilla killing him, taking him out. And at the same time, we end up seeing another Japanese hero appear. I got Robot Man, Gotcha Man stuck in my head. But yeah, he's a very familiar character that just comes in to deal with Godzilla at the same time we're learning about the kid behind his imagination and all that stuff. We get the big one written and drawn by Adam Gorham, colored by Adam Gazowski. And in this one, you got Godzilla battling a kind of like a big giant radioactive leech type creature. And some characters are like, well, our store is going to be completely destroyed. So the old man and daughter are trying to get their stuff, get a bunch of things in their van and get the heck out of there before it gets wiped out. And then we see all these other sludges, kind of like giant radioactive snails that come in and start eating people up. And it's like they gotta decide what they're gonna do with their life now. Are they just gonna stand and watch their things get destroyed, or are they gonna do something else? But yeah, you get to watch Godzilla just battle all these different leech monsters throughout there, and then you get to find out what happens in the long run months later. We got Ain't No Place for an Angel. This is written by Casey Gilly, drawn by Liana Kangas, and colored by Brittany Peer. This is an interesting story of Mothra. I did like how every story, there were no repeat characters. We got a good variety of characters that we know, and some that I've never heard of before, like the Leech one in the last issue. But I was really happy that there's a Mothra story, because Mothra is still my favorite character. But we get to see Mothra battling away, getting injured, and at the same time, there's some people that are dealing with their own problems of abuse and stuff that's going on. But yeah, one of the girls kind of does some things to help Mothra out, and it's just an awesome little outcome there for the characters. Only downfall about it is I'm kind of curious about, I don't want to give it away, but what she does for Mothra, I would think would affect Mothra in the long run because of weight, but I could be wrong because they are very strong creatures. But you got In Summation written by Michael W. Conrad and art by Gige Shaw. Try to figure out what this story was about again. We got basically Godzilla coming back to Japan, and I can't remember all about this one. It's got Mecha Godzilla in it, and I can't remember what that story was all about. But basically, we got characters dealing with Godzilla and Mecha Godzilla, and at the same time, they're on a ship and trying to survive, and that's not a good thing to do around Godzilla. But I can't remember what the overall story of that one was. But basically, you're dealing with lots of devastation from the kaijus and seeing what happens in the aftermath. Where's the next page? Is that the last one?
Looks like there might be one more after that one.
Yeah, it didn't have a label on it at all, but that one's basically, yeah, I can't remember. I'm bad about that one. It's basically, you see Godzilla wiped out a huge area, you can see the footprints and everything that's going on, and then it goes into the people trying to basically relocate and survive in the aftermath of what happens with Godzilla. But yeah, this was really enjoyable. They did a great job with it, gave you a nice chunk of stories, and none that were depressing or anything like that. I enjoyed them all, but those last couple, I just can't remember the overall what happened with it. But yeah, I'm glad I picked that up. I've been into the kaiju thing lately. So what'd you think, Anthony?
I've read the first couple of them, so I have a bookmark here. I got to finish reading it yet, but I liked what I read, and going through the art and stuff too. I think it's just a great collection of just seeing all of these different styles throughout the 70 years, and like you said too, it's kind of cool that they don't have any of the repeat monsters. You're just kind of dealing picking, giving an example of each of them, and but yeah, whether you get some of that serious, very detailed looking artwork, and then you got some of this very colorful and fun, and so yeah, I think it's a good representation of the 70 years of Godzilla. So I'm excited to finish reading it.
Yep, that was awesome.
Cool. All right, let's jump over to Katie. What you got for us?
All right, this week I'm back as your friendly Jedi ambassador. We're going back to the galaxy far, far away with Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi #5, of course, from Marvel Comics in cooperation with Lucasfilm. All right, so this has been out for a few months now, and I had seen on Instagram a selection of panels from this comic, and I needed to see it for myself. There's going to be a lot of explaining in this one. I actually enjoyed the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. It wasn't perfect, but I thought there were a lot of moments that I did enjoy, and they did do well and kept me entertained. So I'm coming at this review from a point of caring about it, I guess. So the story is Obi-Wan Kenobi is in hiding on Tatooine. He gets contacted by Bail Organa because Leia has gone missing. Princess Leia is a little girl. She's about 9 or 10 at this point. She got abducted by bad guys, and Obi-Wan Kenobi is the only one that can go find her. He is, in fact, her only hope. And he ends up finding Leia, fighting some bad guys, finding out that Anakin Skywalker is really Darth Vader and is still alive and hates his guts. So in this issue, Obi-Wan is kind of with a group of refugees that some of them are force sensitive, some of them are just sort of, in the peripheral. But there's a group of refugees, and Obi-Wan is hiding with them, and Vader is coming. The bad guy is coming, and it's going to be a bloodbath. So we get a lot of action in this comic. We do have a major character, well, I guess maybe more of a side character die, but they die heroically and meaningfully. And we get to see Leia save the day, as she is destined to do. And then we get some pretty important character moments between Obi-Wan Kenobi and sort of the secondary antagonist, Reva, who is one of the Inquisitors. They kind of have a moment of like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and they are working together. How can they fight Vader, and what is Vader's motivation? Because Obi-Wan, he doesn't want all these people to die. And then we get some awesome flashback panels to Obi-Wan and Anakin training together while they were both Jedi as Master and Padawan, which for me were some of my favorite in the whole entire series. I thought they were really well done. That's the story. The creative team is Jody Houser as the writer. She does a lot of these adaptations. Salvador LaRocca as the artist, Guru FX is the color artist, and VC's Joe Caramagna, another frequent contributor, is the letterer. So, to the part of my review that is a little messy. Throughout the book, and it's literally every single page, there is artwork that looks like it's either really bad AI or really lazy Photoshop, where they just took a panel from the TV show and then slapped a border on it. And also, nobody has any bones in their face. Everyone is like super smooth cheekbones, no chin, no forehead, no lines or anything. None of the hallmarks of comic book art, as well as none of the hallmarks of how human faces are built. So it gives you a really uncanny valley feeling. Where I'm, yep, exactly. Yeah, no brow bones. And unfortunately, that is on every single page. There's more panels that have that than those that are done in a more typical comic book style. And then there are some where it literally looks like they took a picture, like a screenshot from the show, and then just slapped a dark line border over it. And I think that is pretty unfortunate. For me, that would make this a skip. And I'm a fellow creative professional. I understand that these people are under a tremendous amount of pressure, and most artists and creators are working on multiple books. I would say if I were the editor, I would have sent these pages back, and then I would have also called in the artist and said, all right, what's going on here? Are you just under too much stress? Like, do you have too much work you need to do that maybe we need to either, cut some of your projects or change the deadline? Are you just not feeling engaged? Like, is this just a paycheck for you where you don't really feel like you're getting your value or your time's worth? And in the case of this particular artist, unfortunately, this is not the first time they've done this. It's not the first time it's been pointed out they've done this. So we would have probably had to have a more serious conversation. Since they have been in the industry for a while, I'm going to assume that they know better, and I have the right to expect better from them. But I do think there's a deeper issue going on here. And there could be resolutions, whether it's bringing on, a junior artist or somebody to do line art, or just changing up the release schedule. Because right now Star Wars has a zillion books out. There's so many. And it's unfortunate because I do think the story is really good here and we have such iconic characters. But if you're a completionist or a near completionist like I am, I would recommend waiting for this to go to Comixology Unlimited or Marvel Unlimited. If you're just a casual Star Wars enjoyer and you might want to read a few comics, this is probably a pretty easy one for you to skip. I wouldn't say you're missing a ton. If you're a fan of the show, it literally tells the story like word for word. There's not any, extended edition behind the scenes information. Maybe there will be in the trade, but this one was a miss for me. And I'm really sorry to say that, because I do think there's a lot of potential here. And I hope that we could have a dialogue with the creative team and resolve this problem from happening, because both the creators and the consumers deserve to have a quality product. That's my review. My next one's going to be a lot nicer, for Obi-Wan Kenobi, number 5 from Marvel. And I do believe the trade is coming out soon, so you could pick it up that way as well. Anyway, check it out and punch in those coordinates for Lightspeed.
Well, thank you very much for that. Always good to have your insight in on what's happening over on Star Wars. Let's jump over to Jim. I'm very excited about what you have to talk about, and I'm going to get some visual reference as you start talking.
Okay. I have Faye and the Moon. This is a book I saw in a comic that's related to a game I just got. And this is by Franco with Catherine and Sarah Satron. This is just a adorable little story about a girl named Faye who has a couple of mice as her roommates, and her best friend is a little white rabbit. And one day she lives by herself because her mother disappeared. And one day she's looking at the moon and she has fond memories of the moon because her mother planted a moon garden where she grew some fantastic blue roses. And she goes out into the yard and builds a ladder and climbs up and takes the moon. And then everything starts to go wrong because the moon is gone. And everything that follows on there's a dragon that comes, and the moon is stolen from her house and she can't find it. And she finds a hole in the ground where she has to go down, and she runs into a whole bunch of rats and the Rat King, and this really well done, adorable Rat King riding on the rat pile, which is all the rats he commands, just forming into like this giant kaiju type creature. Was really interesting. And that fights with the dragon, and then another monster comes and fights with the dragon. It was, just a great story. And then she finds out the truth about her mother, who was able to control the moon, and because she was her daughter, she also was able to control the moon, and they were able to save the moon and put it back into the sky. There's a good picture of her climbing the ladder that Anthony has on the screen now to grab the moon. It's I got it off of Amazon. I believe I paid $11.99, $10.99 or $11.99 for this book, and it's a good sized book. I don't see if there's page numbers in here, but it's, I would guess, around 100 pages. But yeah, it ends well. It ends happy. She's reunited with her mother. There are some twists and turns with her best friend, the bunny. I thought it was interesting that her best friend's a white rabbit and she ends up going down a tunnel in the ground. Not related to the other story, but it was still an interesting coincidence. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. Very cute. Like even though it's a menacing picture of the dragon threatening her for the moon, and it was very adorable, well done art that way. So it's appropriate for all ages, I would say. At least past first grade, anyway.
Yeah, I was excited to see that you had read it. And, we had talked about Franco's recent Kickstarter, which we'll have a conversation off air about. It's myself, Kirby, and Jim. We know we had gotten copies of that. But yeah, so I was excited for you to check out the Faye and the Moon, and I talked about it when it come out, and big fan of the Satrin sisters, and this was just a very gorgeous book. So I was excited to, anytime somebody brings something to the table that I have a fondness for, I'm always excited to revisit it that way. So
I ran into Anthony at the store, and I did not remember him reviewing this book, but when he started talking about knowing and meeting the Satrin sisters, then I recalled that. So yeah, like you said, this was part of I got aware of it because I saw the ad in the back of the comic that was included with the Kickstarter. So
see, there we go. Advertising matters.
Advertising in comics is important.
Very cool.
And as part of that Kickstarter.
Yeah, referring to LXT, a new game that was game and experience, a whole collection of everything that was done through Franco and his son and other creators and such. So we'll probably have a proper talk about that in a future episode. We'll probably do that. So, okay, cool. Let's jump over to Kevin Wolf. I'm excited for you to talk about this first one. What you got?
Yeah, I got Grommets here from Image, and issues 1 and 2. 2 just came out just this last week, and there's a little quote up here from Tony Hawk, the professional skateboarder, that I'll read just as a synopsis. Grommets captures the raw feeling of being an outcast kid in the 1980s, and why skateboarding became such a sacred salvation to a lucky few. The graphics, attitudes, and language of that era are represented with a rare authenticity that will leave you wanting more. Yeah, so that's a great image there that Anthony's showing. They have these fun little advertisements, but that's also advertisement for the book, but it looks like an old skater ad and stuff. So yeah, the reason why I picked this up, so I come from a surfing background, and the term grommet is just a little young kid that's incredibly stoked and excited about the sport. And in the reader section, where the author addresses, at the back of the first issue where the author addresses the audience, he gives a definition of that. He says, let's start with some history. A grommet is a young upcoming skater or surfer. Since the 60s, it's been used to describe the next generation of kids with youthful exuberance and love for the sport who want to put their spin on it. So the story takes place in Sacramento, and these are sort of the 2 main characters. And that's a great sort of, it's not a splash page, but it sort of is, 3/4 splash or something towards the end of the first issue. And it follows these 2 characters. This character here is new to town, and he's trying to make friends, and he has his skateboard, so he congregates more towards the skater type crowd, and he makes friends with, and I forget his name, but it's this character right here. And he skateboards, but he's a little bit of he talks a big game, but doesn't quite live up to it. And so the ending of the first issue is pretty savage. I don't know if you would say that, what happens to one of the kids. So, but the artist, Brett Parson, if any of you know Tank Girl, the series Tank Girl, that's where I came into contact with Brett Parson's art for the first time, and I just love his style. Incredible compositions, colors, and then we talked about fine details in stories like Scumburbia and stuff, and just for example, this second issue, first page, this wake up scene here. If you look at on the floor of the room, there's just all kinds of stuff on the walls. And so there's even a little Skeletor under his bed with some ooze on it. So throwback to Motu stuff. And there's just fun little Easter egg type of nods to pop culture throughout the book. And so I don't come from a skateboarding background. I always had an antagonistic attitude towards skaters because they were always the ruffians, cussing people out, causing trouble. And there's a bit of that vibe in this story. But what I appreciated about it, a lot of nostalgia, Taco Bell, all these places that you grow up, music, television shows, references, skate parks. But it captures a picture of sort of this board life, I guess you call it, like skateboarding, surfboarding of California. And that was really fun for me to see and experience. And then in this second issue, there's here's a picture of the old Taco Bell, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
The original. And strangely, it reminded me of some early youth experiences. My brother was the first one in our family to start working and earning money, and he would come home with Taco Bell. And we had a big family, 7 kids in our family, so we didn't go out to eat much. It was just too expensive. So he'd bring home this smell of and we were just like in awe of it. And so Taco Bell has a little bit of that nostalgia for me because of those early experiences. But in this second issue, this girl skater crew shows up, and here's a picture of the 3. And the lead sort of girl she's a bit savage, if I can use that term. She comes from a sort of an abusive home, and in my experiences, a lot of skater kids, they have sort of a tragic childhood, rough upbringing, and they sort of escape into the sport of skateboarding, which has incredible injuries potential, and they take pride and pleasure in sort of bloodying their elbows and stuff like that, and getting hurt and walking away from it. And so there's a bit of that vibe going on in this series too. And then one other scene that really stood out to me, there's this parking garage here, and so there's this term, bombing a hill, skateboarding term, or bombing a skateboard parking garage. And so they bomb this skateboard or this parking garage. There's a big 2-page fold out of it. And when I saw that it grabbed me too, because I was in early high school, and some friends of mine, we drove down to downtown LA. It was in the middle of the night. All we had was our skateboarders, and our plan was to skate around downtown LA for the entire night and just explore. And so we bombed hills, some parking lots, followed a fire engine truck. There's a house on fire. And so all of this, the story just brought back a lot of those feelings and memories. This is the head girl. You can see she's whacking this it's not an officer, what are they called, security officer. Yeah, not a police officer, but a security officer with a skateboard. And there's always this antagonistic relationship between skaters and security guards. So anyways, the art is paramount for me on this series. Super fun art. The story is really fun, a lot of throwback, nostalgia, and just some really engaging storylines, sort of absent parents, kids are out and about, and stuff, and just a lot of fun. So I'm hooked on the series, and it's on issue 2 right now. Looking forward to seeing the rest of it and how it turns out.
I dug issue number 1. I saw Brian Posehn as a co-writer on there with Rick Remender. Brian Posehn did an awesome Deadpool run, and done a bunch of other comics since then. Stand-up comedian, actor, and everything. So I saw his name on there. I don't have any attachment to skating culture or anything like that, but seeing the list of the creators on there, I'm like, oh, this might be something. I didn't know what grommet meant, but yeah, it's good to have that little extra history when you explained it, and then the explanation in the back too.
I've only know that term is a surfing term, and I didn't know it applied to skateboarders. So that's something that I learned too. So
And it wasn't like it's not German or anything like that. You don't have
yeah,
to translate.
a grom. Yeah, there has to be a diminutive little kid. Yeah, something small.
And just because you mentioned Taco Bell and having a story related to that, that reminded me in the Scumburbia, them having a lot of replacement names for restaurants. So in the mall, they have Nacho Bell, and what I laughed was Pizza Hat. It looks like it's going to say Pizza Hat, but then you see a hat on the character there, so Pizza Hat.
Oh, okay, so that the author has to be playing with German. That absolutely confirms it because pizza HUT, Germans always see that, and Hut is hat in German.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So pizza Hut, the Germans always think Pizza Hat when they see it. So he's absolutely playing with German. I'm convinced of it now.
Well, there we go. That's some excellent insight on that.
Yeah. So anyways, real fun series. I have seen reviews of this from other comic book interested people or fans, and they're not into sports or skateboarding, and they're like, no, this isn't for me. And so it's for a segment of people. So if I'm stoked on it because it touches on a lot of things that I grew up sort of seeing and hearing about and doing and stuff, and may not be for everybody, but it's fun, I think, in a general sense. So
yeah, you had me a Tank Girl.
Tank Girl
is also a device you use in electric work, I think. So.
Oh, yeah. Tank Girl, if you haven't checked out Parsons' work on his run on that, that's so fun. So, yeah.
Cool. We'll kick off another round here. I'm talking about the Mammoth #1. This is something I remember pointing out in the previews catalog. Something is wrong in the deep forest of Broke Tree Valley. Something deadly, something mammoth. The legends speak of something larger than human comprehension, a monstrous phantom that disappears for decades at a time. Now it's back, and things are about to go very bad if 4 people, Olivia, Jess, Kokoro, and Mason, scientists who have come to the small city of Casbro to investigate a bizarre series of seismic activities in this heavily forested valley, can't put the mammoth to rest. One real problem with this is Olivia's dead. This is by Paul Tobin, Arjuna Susini, Pippa Bowling, and Charles Pritchett. I bought this off of the cover. It has a good name. It doesn't deal with like a prehistoric mammoth or anything like that, but it just has what looks like a giant mummy phantom type of thing, and it just kind of looked like a cool cover. I think this is cover B, so that nope, actually it might be cover A. Anyways, definitely showed that covers are important because that grabbed my attention. This book starts off really strong with having basically Olivia and her scientist friends are basically in this house that is starting to rumble and it's breaking down and it gets pretty vulgar as this main character is dealing with the collapse, and it's in the synopsis, but she's dealing with the collapse of this house and she dies. That is the opening part of the story and the setup of the whole concept of what they're doing here. This issue surrounds this group of scientists who are now speaking with the sheriff's department, and they're being interviewed on their connection with Olivia and what they knew about what they're doing. They're talking about how they're a group of scientists who all have specific research and talents and abilities to not abilities, but their expertise to investigate these seismic activities that are happening decades at a time, and it's not something that just keeps occurring day after day, and they're just kind of tracking this down, and they kind of hold up in this house as they try to inspect what is happening with all of these mysterious activities. There is some really creepy stuff that happens midway through the book. I won't show the pages just because I think it's very moving as far as just kind of discovering it for yourself as a reader. A lot of this stuff takes place in the daylight, and they're still finding ways to kind of really create creepy forest scenes in the daylight. And basically kind of dealing with anybody who has encountered these mysterious activities throughout these decades may play a part in this story. That's kind of what I'll leave it as. But you find out a little more about these scientists and their connection to trying to figure out what happened to their friend Olivia, um, dealing with their connection and personal connection to each other and to Olivia as well. So you kind of get into some of the relationships and how they all know each other. And I think they do a good job of making you care for these characters pretty quick, especially for Olivia, who had only existed within the first couple pages there. But yeah, I think it sets up a really good mystery. I'm very curious what happens. It doesn't go too much into what we see on this title page here with our Mammoth entity, but I think it does a really good job of creating the suspense of these activities and what's causing this, and like I said, with the stuff that happened midway through the book, and that really caught my attention, especially with having being able to make something creepy and startling in using the daylight and not just relying on shadows and sounds and stuff like that. I thought it was made it extra creepy that it was just right there, plain and simple. But yeah, this is pretty good. I was pretty interested in this one. I think it's a mini series. This is from Mad Cave Studios or Comics. I don't think I purchased too much from them, but this is, once again, I was drawn by that cover art. So we'll see what happens in future issues. But very much dug the Mammoth #1. Kirby, from
Yeah,
Mammoth to Monolith.
Yes, I almost accidentally, instead of buying Monolith #2, almost bought Mammoth #2.
Really?
So I'd get them mixed up in the catalogs each month. But yeah, I did see that first cover and thought about getting it, but I was going to wait and see what I heard about it. But I checked out Monolith #1 because I've been really enjoying all these Spawn runs that they've been putting out, these new runs. I thought I knew this character. I thought I remembered him from the past. And maybe the character that I'm thinking of that was in one of the earlier Spawns, but I could be wrong. But he's basically going off, and they do go to a flashback in here, whereas he's just basically on his way to Earth to deal with all the stuff that happened. When, if you haven't heard my reviews in the past about Spawn with that whole battle, all the doors to hell were opened up, all the Spawns were put on Earth. We also had all the angels and all the other different factions that all battled it out. And then once a certain person, I'm not going to give it away, he finally took the throne of hell, all the gateways were closed, and all the hell spawns and the angels and pretty much everybody lost all their powers, and they were stuck on Earth. So then everybody decided that was still on Earth decided to go after all the hell spawns. Well, Monolith was on his way back to Earth, and when he was on his way to Earth, his ship kind of got pulled into this kind of a space Alcatraz. I mean, this takes place in 3030 when all this is happening, where it leads us up to. And Monolith's ship gets sucked in by the gravitational pull or whatever they have set up to pull in ships, and they instantly enslave them and throw them into the space Alcatraz type prison environment. And he has no idea why he got pulled into it. So as he's locked up, there's all these aliens that are also locked up, and he thinks they have something to do with getting him in prison, and he just starts ripping them apart and destroying all kinds of prisoners. And it's pretty much not a very well organized. I hear after a bunch of characters get slaughtered, then some guards decide to come running in with weaponry and stuff to try and stop it. But how are you going to really stop these creatures that are 3 times your size have all these special powers and all that stuff. I don't understand why they have normal humans that are guarding it, and we don't see some interesting space alien characters that might be bigger than humans, more powerful, that would be the guards on this prison planet. But yeah, it's their choice, I guess. I should mention it. Sean Lewis, Valerio Giordano, and Ulysses Areola and World Design that worked on this. But we find out that basically Monolith chose to become a Hellspawn, where he could have kept other powers that he had. He's kind of like a herald. We find out that the main warden for this prison planet later on is Omega Spawn, which him I remember from the earlier versions of Spawn. I used to have an Omega Spawn action figure back in the day. But he's basically destroying planets. Everybody's got their own planet destroyer and herald. It's like Silver Surfer and Galactus just gets copied through every franchise. But he's destroying all the planets, all the universes, trying to narrow it down to just what he wants. Then he wants to rebuild the world in his likeness, in his mindset, the way he wants it. So he's out there destroying planets. Monolith was working for him, but then he disappeared. And now Omega Spawn found out that Monolith is in the prison, and he's been searching for him forever. So now he's going to sit there and try and probably make some deals with Monolith, or who knows what's going to happen down the way. But in this issue, Monolith is just basically working on trying to escape the prison environment, and he does find out about Omega Spawn in here, but he didn't know at first that he had anything to do with this prison environment. But yeah, it is definitely interesting. I love this character. I love the big hulking monstrous characters. I like that it ran right off the Spawn run. So him like the rest of the Hell Spawns lost all their special powers and stuff. So it'll be interesting. I don't know if Omega Spawn also lost all his. He should have, but he wasn't on Earth when it happened. But he either was Monolith, so I'm assuming they all lost their powers. But yeah, should be interesting where this run goes, and it's just a nice short 3-issue run, so that's why I jumped on it right away. So yeah, check it out from Image Comics.
Cool. Jump over to Katie. What's your next one?
All right, my next pick is called Assassin's Creed Visionaries. This is a comic with 3 different stories in it. First is called Shinobi, and then we have Uncivil War, and then finally Project Altair. It is a collaboration between Massive Comics, Lunat Comics, and Ubisoft Entertainment. So this is basically a what-if story set into the Assassin's Creed universe, where they just kind of turned their artists over and are like, hey, create stories around these themes. Now we have an Assassin's Creed game coming out that is going to be set in feudal Japan. So, really good cross promotion there. I appreciated that. I don't think they've covered the Civil War era. That's one that actually hasn't been done. But then Altair is the main character from the first Assassin's Creed game. I liked everyone in this. I finished reading it and I went, oh, wow, that's my favorite story. And then I read the next one. I went, oh, wow, that was my favorite story. Very, very good. I will say I'm a casual Assassin's Creed enjoyer. I've played a few games and liked it, read a few comics and liked it. So I don't know how this will translate to hardcore fans, but it had all the elements your story needs. So the first one, Shinobi, is about a spy in feudal Japan and an assassin. They are, of course, a ninja, and they are... they're going after a mark and it's a clean kill, but unfortunately the family sees and, they're devastated and they're going to be scarred for life. And the assassin is remarking on, like, am I a part of the problem? This is how the cycle continues, that, we take out a mark, there's a war, it breeds, children and families left behind that want vengeance and are very resentful. So they come after us, we take them out again. And then there's also a quick little assassin ninja battle with another assassin who this time is a lady. And we get to see the iconic leap of faith, which is very satisfying every single time. Shinobi was written by Bray Dornbach, art by Ryan Benjamin, colors by John, just John, and letters by Jean Yon. And then the next story is Uncivil War. It's set after the American Civil War and tells the story of a formerly enslaved and now free man who is a black man. And he is kind of talked into joining the assassins, and he's getting used to having a different life as being master of his own self and identity versus answering to other people, and find out there's a plot to assassinate President Lincoln, not the one you're thinking of. And this character is convinced by Ulysses Grant to, yep, that one, Ulysses Grant to try and fight against these assassins. And they pull in the idea of the Animus, which is kind of a MacGuffin from the games that allows you to like see memories of your ancestors and interact with them. So this gets pulled into the Animus, and one of his descendants far down the line is like, you're gonna have to side with the Templars on this one and let the assassination play out. And the guy says, I can't do that. The future of the country is at stake, and my future is at stake too. And Fate actually intervenes on his behalf, and he doesn't stop the assassination, but he also does not assassinate the assassins, which was the plan. And Fate intervenes, and Grant does end up becoming president. Lincoln, unfortunately, does die. And, just an interesting commentary on impact that our choices or our non-choices do have on, and are the assassins and the Templars in a way kind of cheating God and toying with fate and not letting things play out the way that they should. As a recap, so throughout most of the series, the assassins are the good guys, the Templars are the bad guys. The assassins very much believe in personal liberty and independence, and the idea that every man has to make their own destiny, versus the Templars are like, okay, we want peace through, we control the world, we make decisions, and if people don't follow that, then we have a problem with them. And then finally, the last story is very short, but it is basically, it's done in a manga style, and it is the idea that in some alternate Earth, the assassins use mech suits to fight kaiju. So I love that, because I've also been into the kaiju again lately with kaiju number 8. It's a mostly black and white story with some elements of teal and pink, and we get some great kaiju v mech action, kicking butt, and we find out that the mech suit this assassin's piloting is called Altair 1. And we get a very satisfying leap of faith and a really cool scene of the kaiju and the mech suit punching each other. And that's the end. And honestly, I know there's been a few Assassin's Creed manga, and this kind of makes me want to check those out. But I really enjoyed this. It was super fun. I'm not sure on the numbering if there's been other Assassin's Creed Visionaries, or, are they in a series, or are they just a bunch of one-shots? Regardless, I would read more, and I actually really liked this. I was very pleasantly surprised. That is Assassin's Creed Visionaries from Massive, Lunac, and Ubisoft. Check it out.
Very cool. Let's jump over. We have one more review in this episode. Let's go back to Kevin Wolf. What you got for us?
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Kitty. That title sounds very fascinating, so I'm going to go
cool.
look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to help.
Yeah, I love American history comic book combos. So it reminds me a little bit of Redcoat. I know Kirby's been enjoying Redcoat.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there's a bit of that magic sort of, Templar stuff going on in that one too. Yeah, so this is my other title is Armored. It's issue 2 now, and Anthony, you'll enjoy this. R.L. Stein gives a little quote on the back. A fun read and a great new twist on an old-fashioned horror. I have only one question: what happens next? So R.L. Stein. But a real quick synopsis: while investigating the site of his adoptive parents' son's death, orphan teen Andy discovers a magical suit of armor that is still being haunted by the ghost who wore the armor hundreds of years ago. Now that Andy has the armor, he has to be trained by the ghostly Sir Williams and go face to face against the creature who killed the young boy, the boy of the family that he's just been adopted into, or succumb himself to the same fate. So the story picks up where issue 1 left off. This monster is attacking. Andy is a bit resistant to this armor and wanting to use it. And then this sort of ghostly, he's half a form, he's chopped off at the waist, who owned the armor, is trying to talk him into actually embracing the armor. There's a little bit of a it's not a Karate Kid moment, but it's where a training scene where Sir William trains Andy how to use the armor. And one of the elements that I really enjoy about it, the art style is like, it's almost this wash watercolor style. It's a bit fuzzy, I think, in this issue. It almost seems like the opacity has been turned up, which so just a heads up on that. That might not be for everybody, but the story to me is compelling to where that doesn't bother me too much. And then there's a fun sort of tension. This is the adoptive family that Andy is adopted into. The father of the adopted family is an archaeologist, and he's discovering stuff about this castle that Andy already knows about. He's already discovered this suit of armor. So there's this really neat tension between those people going on under the surface. You don't see it on the surface out in the open. And anyways, he does end up embracing the use of the armor. He trains. And then there are Andy's, the original kid that died. There's 2 of his friends in the story that Andy and his friend follow to a cemetery. And again, sort of like what Anthony mentioned earlier, sort of this is daylight scenes where there's spooky elements going on. And I think it's successful in that account also. And the tension in that scene. So trying to think if I can say too much about the ending of this. Yeah, I won't say too much about the ending, but the battle goes on and it ends on a fun little cliffhanger. And in the back, I always love these sort of the development sketch character scenes in the back. So there's plenty of that. Here's the monster character. So Armored, really fun read. And it actually went well with Grommets this week, because of they're both in pink trade dress for some reason. I'm not sure why, but they look like they're almost sister comics because of that. So sort of fun.
I'm glad you brought that. I've been interested in that one. Looks good.
Yeah.
And now I should have brought it to the table, but it would have worked with everybody's theme here, like going back and forth. I had the Godzilla Skate or Die comic I read. I have to give it, I got to give it a second read. I really love the art and the colors and everything, but there was a lot going on, and maybe that's my lack of skate culture knowledge and stuff. So I didn't really, the panels are very busy and such, but if anything, it makes me want it, because I have a couple issues pre-ordered. If anything, it'll just make me reread it just to kind of see if I get another take on it. But seeing, Kirby mentioned Godzilla and us talking about skateboard culture, and it just kind of had like all of these elements of everything. But
yeah, the author of that one, he comes from an inline skating background. From what I haven't read that series yet either, but I've been following on Instagram and have watched some of his videos, and so he has a different cultural experience regarding all of skate culture. But it's a fun mesh of yeah.
And I'm kind of remembering now, like, even though I never, physically was a skateboarder or anything like that, but I love the Skate or Die Nintendo game. I love the Tony Hawk games. I love playing all of that stuff. But if it's me physically getting on that, it's that's
No.
not. That's a whole nother skill.
Yeah, my daughter stopped surfing, and to take up skateboarding, my heart was broken. And I thought, you could fall on a wave and you'll land in soft water. You may drown, but on a skateboard, you hit the cement and you're going to break something. So my big, at least I'm really happy about this as a parent, is no major injuries. And then she lost interest. So
That's excellent. All right. So yeah, that is going to wrap it up for the weekly reviews as well as this episode. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. Please share the show with a friend, both on iTunes, Crimson Cowl Comic Club, as well as YouTube for the full video experience, which also shows, has show and tell with the panels and such, and all of that fun stuff. A couple other plugs, crimsoncowl.com for info and original webcomics. David Gloyd and David Gloyd II from our comic club here and Crimson Cowl Media community. They have their own comic books that are out there, a physical copy that you can always reach out to us to order. And if you want an example of that, they have some non-printed stories that are available in webcomics as well, part of their universe there. And let's see here. Let's go down. I said some of those out of order. Kirby has a spin-off podcast called Under the Cowl of MS. You want to let people know what's been going on or what's coming up for Crimson Cowl or Under the Cowl of MS?
Still got the same stuff going on, lots of reviews, previews. Our normal podcast I'm trying to put out once a week, but I haven't decided which day I want to keep it on, but usually once a week or once every other week. Get the oddball one or that, your MS, your Dementia stuff. Some more unpackings this week that were fun, so we got some banked ready to go, so lots of stuff coming out. Just keep an eye out, follow us, subscribe.
Cool. You can follow my art accounts, Anthony Laatsch, Laatsch, over on Instagram and Facebook. If you want to purchase some original art, I'm going to hunker down for a little bit without some shows. I thank the people that came out to Black Creek, Wisconsin for the Comic Verse event, as well as Kirby and Shelley for showing their support and picking up some goodies there. I always appreciate that. It's always fun to get out there for the convention and have send that art off to other homes. But I'm going to hunker down and work on some stuff and prep for a very big convention appearance mid-September. Won't start advertising that too much until we get closer because it's still a couple months away. But just look forward to that. If you want a hankering for some original art and you're in the local area, you can go to the Gift Nook in Kewaskum, Wisconsin. You can go to the beautiful downtown Skokie at Oh Yeah Comics, because I do have original sketch cards at both locations that are only available there. Cartoonist by Night over on YouTube. Our most recent drop at the time of this recording was Jay Hammond with the topic of hot dogs. That was a really fun episode. Super fun to see the art that came out of that one. And an episode that is in the can that I've got to go through and edit yet. Much anticipated guest. We have Jamie Cosley talking about Hanna-Barbera. Jamie Cosley, who had Blue Scar the Barbarian. So we talk about his career as an artist as well as Hanna-Barbera and draw and discuss those. And another reason checking out the Crimson Cowl YouTube is for cats that show up. I was gonna mention that earlier, but I didn't think there was a cat on this episode, and now here it is. A cat shows up. So if I think it, a cat will appear. So yeah, anyways, Cartoonist by Night, subscribe on YouTube. We're 1 year into it. We have I think it's like 24, 25 episodes, and it's a lot of fun. And with Kevin Wolf here on the program, I'd like to throw it over to you if you'd like to advertise your art and creations to the people out there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, here's my Instagram information, Happy Wolf Art 1, in case you're interested to check out some of my art and projects. I just finished up printing out the colored version of Vamp and Kermuffin. And for Kirby, he was wondering how much of a different reading experience would it be, but here's that stained glass in color, and you can see that it's Kermuffin playing with their dollhouse. So the black and white version didn't do that scene justice. But yeah, so I just finished printing this out, and there's thumbnails in the back, sketches, and then there's also artist notes about the art itself and stuff. So super fun. And I'm probably going to be slowing on creator creation stuff because I'm having to go back to work and earn a paycheck. So but I have a project planned that I'm hoping to release in the winter, and I'm working on other smaller projects, like a continuation of the To Fight a Hessian. It would be To Fight a Surfer from Eddie's point of view. And so there's other things in the work, but work's going to have to take a little bit more precedence. But that's life.
Yeah, plenty of stuff for people to check out, like you said, to fight a Hessian with the California kids and with Vamp and Kermuffin, so and stickers, and just go to Happy Wolf Art 1 over on Instagram and you can check out everything that's been happening over there. And if you want a little more in depth, once again, go back into our feeds, especially for the YouTube feeds and stuff to see the video representations of it. But checking out his creator interview and the reviews that we've done in the past. So cool. And it was always awesome to welcome guests back. And thank you for joining us in another episode of the Crimson Cowl Comic Club, Kevin. All right. And that is going to do it then. That is all of the plugs for this episode. So once again, subscribe, tell a friend, like, rate, review, and all of that fun stuff to help the podcast grow. That's going to do it for this episode. This whole time, I've been at the end of the world once upon a time.
I've been hanging with monolithic kaijus.
I've been taking a leap of faith.
Who's ready for the clothing optional Christmas hot tub party?
I've been enjoying the finer details of all these comics.
To be continued.